We continue our discussions on leadership. Why is leadership such an important subject? Let me give you 3 separate reasons. Number 1, because as soon as you are more than 2 or 3 of you, you need a leader. You need some way of agreeing, some way of coordinating your thoughts so that you can do the project together. So really, unless you can work totally on your own, and of course that kind of thing that cannot be done one person cannot be very big. I think you need to understand the place of leadership because of people working together. Then the second thing is that since it is a function that will be required anywhere and everywhere, isn't it interesting that we don't necessarily teach it as children are growing up, as you go through school? It's not a subject taught. And yet, finally, we all become leaders of one sort or the other. So that's why we need to discuss it and draw lessons from leaders as to what they learn. Number 3, I think it's a very important subject to discuss, because all of us are leaders of one level or another. Because we all are, we can improve society, improve community, if we are able to do things better with time. And leadership is one of the things that will help our community to be better. Of course, we are talking about good leadership, because we can also have Hitler type of leadership, which is based on that if I do well, I must destroy somebody else. That's why he destroyed the Jews, because he thought he can be better off with others dead. That is evil leadership. So we are talking about good leadership. That is called good leadership because it's seeking not just the good of the leader, but the good of his community, the good of society. That's why we call it good leadership. When it's not self-centered, it's other-centered. And so we've been picking various people mentioned in the scriptures and trying to find out what can we learn about them. Today we will pick a lady called Tabitha. The other name is Dorcas, who is in the scriptures. Of course, I have an interest in the name because my own mother my late mother was called Tabitha. And so I know that name from the 1950s when she got the name. And find it a very good name. But we are not studying a name. We are studying a person called Tabitha or Dorcas. We can find her story in the book of Acts, chapter 9. We can also find it verse 36 to 40, then verse 41 to 43. But the key verse is Acts 9:36. At Joppa, there was a certain disciple named Tabitha, which is translated Dorcas. This woman was full of good works and charitable deeds, which she did. That summarizes her life. And we want to find out, who is she? What was her influence? Why would we regard her as a leader? Of course, every leader must have followers. Did she have any followers? And every follower follows a leader. So if you describe somebody as a follower, then it's begging the question, who is the leader? If you describe somebody as a leader, it's begging the question, who is the follower? You know, her name Dorcas is a Greek equivalent of Tabitha. What does it mean? A gazelle. Dorcas is a Greek word that means gazelle. And of course, it could be called Tabitha in the Aramaic, or the language the Hebrews spoke at that time, and is a Hebrew equivalent. So you can either call her Dorcas or call her Tabitha, with the same meaning. You need to understand, during that time, Hebrew was getting lost. After years of colonization, they were losing Hebrew, and the language that was basically being spoken in Palestine by all the people was actually the language Aramaic. which is of course part of the things of colonization. The same thing like I am talking to you in English because I come from a country called Kenya, which was colonized by the English around the turn of the 20th century. So it's important to understand that that is the circumstance in which this leader we are discussing find herself. You know, what Acts 9 says is that, but it happened in those days that she became sick. Who? Tabitha became sick and died. When they had washed her, that is, washed the dead body, they laid her in the upper room. And since Leda, a town called Leda, was near Joppa, where Tabitha lived, and the disciple had heard that Peter, the apostle, was there, they sent 2 men to him, imploring him not to delay in coming to them. You know, these disciples in Joppa are hoping Peter would do what? Resurrect the Dorcas. Isn't that real love? That even after the person is dead, they feel like as long as there is even a small chance she can live, they don't want her dead. So they had, wow, Apostle Peter is not too far away from here. Why don't we send for him? Dorcas is already dead, obviously, by this time. She has even been prepared for burial. That's the washing. You know, there's no record of them asking Peter to conduct a funeral for her. That's what that's not that they could do for themselves. So they were hoping that Dorcas could be raised from the dead. You know, this love of the followers is very, very important. Please note, the followers and Dorcas are not having title relationship where you say this is my boss, or you say this is my president, or you say this is my governor, whatever. But the way they were relating is such that they felt the loss in a big way. And they're asking, how can we go on? Is there even a small chance that you could live? You know, for these people and their love for their leader, it is not over until it is over. That's one of the lessons we learned from the life of Tabitha, life of Dorcas. That we need to have that kind of passion that causes us to push to the end until it's truly over. I repeat, the big lesson from Tabitha is that it's not over until it is truly over. How many things have gone wrong because people gave up too early? I hear in my community, before the missionary arrived, they were not digging graves. So if you got very sick, they were so afraid of dead bodies that if you got very sick, they moved you to a bush to die. Now, I hear there are sometimes some surprising incidents where the dead person, now with the cold of the night, would kind of revive, and they start crawling towards back to the house, only for them to wake up and find the person was back. That was their culture. That was their tradition. You gave up, at least for this particular example I'm giving, they had given up on the guy too early. And you need to ask yourself as a leader, do you give up too early? Do you fail to push something to its limit? Do you sweat the asset to its limit? Or as soon as you have a small discouragement, you give up? As soon as the project looks like it's failing, you don't wait for it to fail. You now collapse it yourself. What would you learn whenever you remember the name Tabitha or the name Dorcas? About a group of people who could not give up, who did not believe it is over until it is truly over. Maybe that's a lesson that we all as leaders are. Persistence. Persistence means you do not give up because of discouragement. You are able to push to the end. How many people have made serious discoveries just because they pushed one more step. They failed, they tried, they failed, they tried, they failed, they tried, until they tried one more time. And despite the 100 failures earlier, they finally discovered something which is making our lives better today. But if they were to be honest and tell you where they were by the time they made the discovery of the invention, they were just about giving up. And I think that's one of the things that we need to ask. Whatever area of leadership, are you a pastor? Do give up on people very easily. You know, you ask somebody to give a sermon, then the way they give it embarrasses you. Do you feel like that they can never improve? They can never be better? Or maybe it is your children and they are learning how to do certain things. Then when they do it, it's not your level, it's not your standard. You give up. You don't start thinking, instead of giving up on them, give them a chance to try and try and try and try. Patience is one of the leadership qualities that will be needed if you are going to get the breakthrough discoveries, the breakthrough items that are on your list in the strategic plan. For them to be realized, you need to be somebody who pushes to the very end and never gives up until it's all over. And I think that's an important thing. So the name Tabitha is talking about this lady who died, but her followers did not accept that he is dead. They called for Peter. You know, this idea of sending somebody from Joppa to Lydda, I think it's important to understand. Lydda was the town where Peter was. It's interesting. This place, Joppa, sometimes it's called Jaffa or Yafo. It's a city on the Mediterranean Sea, and the nearest port is the port of Jerusalem, the nearest port to Jerusalem, which lies about 50 kilometers or 1 miles to the southeast. Lydda lies in between Joppa and Jerusalem. In other words, it's not Joppa is in the coast, Jerusalem is in the hinterland, Lydda is in between, about 10 miles or 16 kilometers southwest of Joppa. So you can see it's pretty near. I keep asking, if Peter was not at Lydda, which is only 10 miles away, they would have easily given up. And that's why you need to always start by saying, where is help? One of the best leaders are people who identify their full resources. Not just the resources they have, but the resources that could be available to them. That's why this thing in management we call SWOT analysis is very important. You don't just do internal analysis. You also do external analysis. What are the threats or opportunities? Now, not inside the organization, but outside. And one of the things that these people discover in their external analysis is that there could be somebody in Lydda who could help sort out their problem. One of the leadership lessons we are learning from this story is the importance of doing external analysis. Don't just depend on your own assets. Why can't you collaborate with others who are outside and see where your group could end up? At least Tabitha lived, because the proximity of help is the one that created hope. But for that to happen, they had to do analysis. Think, where is help? What could we do? There's nothing we could do in Joppa. But Peter is only 10 miles away. Why can't we go to him? And they went. Let me ask you, as a leader, are you limiting the performance of your group, the performance of your organization, the performance of your church, because you don't do external analysis? Who are the neighboring churches? What are they doing that could help us? Who are the neighboring pastors? How do they deal with problems like the one we are currently dealing with? How can we utilize their knowledge that goes beyond us? Maybe we are better than them in this area, But they seem to be better than us in dealing with this problem. Why don't we go to them? Even if you're a bigger church, we are more famous. But this other small church is having something we need to get. And in the process, you are going to have a breakthrough discovery. Or because you are willing to do external analysis and look at things that were supposed to be, that could be of use to you. That's what these people did, the friends of Tabitha. They did the external analysis and we have heard. Somebody who came there from there the other day said, Peter is there. Why don't we accept that, that Peter could be of help to us? So proximity should be something that you give you hope. External analysis, not just internal analysis, could be something that could help. Don't just think of the resources God has given you, the resources amongst your people. Think about who you can collaborate with, who is outside. So what happens? The Bible tells us then Peter arose and went with these people, the two people that have been sent to Lydda. When he had come, he has come from Lydda now to Joppa, they brought him to the upper room, and all the widows stood by him weeping, showing the tunics and garments which Dorcas or Tabitha had made while she was with them. In other words, look at the evidence. In other words, to show you this is a person who should not be dying. Look at what they have been doing. How can he die? May God intervene. That's what we have called you. And you know, now you discover who the followers are. They are people who could not have been of any help to Tabitha. He is not helping them. Maybe she was an expert in making tunics. But the people coming are not the ones she had sold her tunics to. It's not the ones she was trading with. It's the ones who couldn't pay her anything. And they're the ones who ended up helping her life to be extended. They are being described as widows. And in those days, when you lacked a husband, you are helpless. Because all assets were owned by men. So as a widow, you are helpless. But these are the people who are showing love, showing the evidence of the tunics and garments that Tabitha had made for them. Let me ask you as a leader, do you just think of doing good to famous people who can pay you back? Or do you do good to people who cannot be of any help? Some of you are very junior staff who cannot play any role in your promotion at all. Who do you show good to? Tabitha was different. She was showing good not just to business relations. She was also showing people who cannot be back. They were what today we would call CSR subjects. Corporate social responsibility subject. They are not part of the organization. They are people to be helped. But they're the ones that made a difference in her life. And we as leaders must learn from Tabitha the importance of not just helping those who can help us, but helping those who cannot help us. And you know something? God seems to have a special place for widows and orphans. And as you seek to help people who cannot help you, it's actually, the Bible actually says it's like you are leading to God. And pay time came. Now she's dead, she's sick, then dead. And God recognizes the love these people had. And so she lives again. So good leadership is a leadership that seeks to help even the helpless. Good leadership is not leadership of, but what did I get out of it? What is innate for me? Good leadership is where you of necessity believe that God created you as a donation to the world, as a benefactor to the world. And so you are seeking to help anybody that God brings your way. And I think that will be something that will be important to think about. You know, we could call these deeds by Dorcas charitable deeds. You know, charitable deeds, yes. But I think when there's something we need to mention here, isn't Tabitha also a woman? Hey, isn't Tabitha likely to also have lost her husband? But yet she is actually becoming big enough to have impact on her surroundings. And one of the things we are learning then is that it was easy for Tabitha to understand the problems of the other widows because she was one. The problems of women because she was one. These people are poor because as soon as you have no husband and no son, you certainly are poor. And you know, those days, a lot of clothes were handmade. So it would have been very expensive and very difficult for these widows. So she makes them tunics and garments and then gives to them. That's what they are showing to Peter as evidence of why they love this person. So, but I want you to note there's a woman doing it. You know, one of the problems I've discovered in my own life, maybe in life of others, when I'm in pain, I become very self-centered. I become very, very self-conscious. I think of myself. And yet, if I could remove myself from my pain and think about other people's pain, my pain will grow less or seemingly less. Have you ever gone to a hospital when you are sick, feeling sick, only to see other people who are sick, if that is English, worse than you? And all of a sudden you feel better. You even want to help them. Your disease becomes less. Maybe that's one of the things you are learning from Tabitha. Not becoming too absorbed in your problem. We understand you are a woman, you may have your own issues, but instead of concentrating on your issues, start concentrating on other issues. You'll be a Tabitha. You'll be a Dorcas. So you as a leader, are you too worried about marupurupu, what are the benefits I'm getting? I spend so many hours in this work. Or do you get absorbed totally in the welfare of your staff, in the welfare of the people you're working with, in the welfare of your clients, in the welfare of your customers? As you become other-centered, you leave yourself for God to remember you and to bless you. You know, here is a poor giver. He is poor, but a giver. Giving is even greater when done out of poverty. When you don't give because you have. The church in Macedonia, when Paul is teaching about giving in 2 Corinthians 7, 8, and 9, the church in Macedonia, he said that they gave out of poverty. They gave out when they had nothing, they still gave. And I think that's one of the things you need to do. As a leader, if you want to have influence, it must be sacrificial. You must not give your extras. You need to give even what is painful to give. Serve people. Think about them. Just like Tabitha did. And that will be something that helps. Let me read verse 40. Acts 9 verse 40. But Peter put them all out and knelt down and prayed. And turning to the body, he said, Tabitha, arise. She opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. You know, interesting. Here is a miracle required. Here is everybody's believing and not believing. You know, they have called him, but they have never heard of a man rising. They may never have seen a person rising from the dead who has been so dead they have even been washed and prepared for. But Peter refused to create a commotion. You know, I want to see how it will happen. No, she sent all of them out, and it's just between him, God, and the dead body. What do you think we are learning out of this story? That's not a very good thing to act just for show, just for drama. A leader is not involved in creating drama. You know, everything you do, you put it in the newspaper. Everything you do, you want everybody to know you did it. Everything you do it where people can see. Like the people Jesus talked about who want to tithe, but they want to tithe in the open where others can see they are tithing. And all of it is negative. In fact, Jesus said, when you give, do not let your left hand know that you are giving. And he said, if other people get to know, then what that means is, in the end, you have no benefit, because your rewards have actually been only received on earth. So Peter did not want to pray for show, but God had him. So I think as leaders, we learn out of this lesson that do good, seek God's help, but don't let attention turn to you. It will not be very, very useful at all. You know, when is Peter rising somebody from the dead? That certainly not too many people have been raised from the dead. But this is not the only time somebody has been raised from the dead. Let's look at Mark chapter 5, verse 38. When he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and saw a tumult and those who wept and wailed loudly, when he came in, he said to them, why make this commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping. And they ridiculed him. But when he had put them all outside, he took them, father and the mother of the child, and those who were with him, and entered where the child was lying. Then he took the child to the hand and said to her, Tabitha, come, which is translated, little girl, I said to you, arise. Immediately the girl, Talitha cum, not Tabitha, but Talitha cum. Immediately the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years old, and they were overcome with great amazement. Can't you see? Peter is believing God can do it again. Because Jesus said, when I go, greater things will you do. So he does it exactly the way Jesus had done it. And one of the things that Peter discovered is that man cannot bring resurrection. He did not just stand there and say, move, the child, Tabitha is rising. No, he prayed for everybody to know he is not the one who has brought her from death. It is God himself. Man is never the source of anything. That's why we pray to the source and let the glory go back to the source. So, as leaders, do you like getting the glory to yourself, or do you allow God who has helped you in situations? And God will do it for his own glory. But you are seeking your own glory. How sure are you that God is going to do it just so that you are regarded as a great man? I think in the story of Tabitha, we learn that you live your life for others and brings God glory. And as you do that, your problem is God's problem, and he helps you in it. But you must learn to do it the Tabitha and Peter way. May the Lord help us to come to where we are able to live our lives being other-centered rather egocentric or self-centered. Thank you very much.